Okay, so good morning everybody. I hope you can hear me. I think there were some more people on the list actually registered for this course, so but maybe we can wait. Okay, good morning. I think there were more than 20 for this first session, and now I can see only not so many in the moment, but okay. Yeah, maybe we should start, and probably people will join us. Okay, welcome to Inspire training. This training, you will see a bit later, will consist today of 4 sessions. It will be the same session, so each session will be different because each session is followed by the previous one. So actually we will start. First of all, maybe to mention what is the objective of this course. The objective of the course is to provide you an overview of Inspire Directive, and we will try also to go through some practical examples and exercises this afternoon. So some, let's say, learning outcomes for you after this day, after this whole day training. Of course, if you stay whole day here in this room, will be to know about the Inspire Directive and relation to other policy areas, to know about Inspire Roadmap, implementation process, progress, what is going on, and to know how actually to use the Inspire. So this is the overview of today training. So in the first session I will go let's say, to give you a general overview of the Inspire Directive and relations to other policies. Then there is a coffee break scheduled at 10:30. After that we will continue before lunch with a little bit more details about Inspire. Good morning, welcome. And it will be about Inspire principles, components and implementation. After that there is a lunch break scheduled, and in the afternoon we will go a little bit more into the details. So I will talk about data scope in Inspire, and after coffee break in this last session today there will be some, let's say, Inspire in action. So I will show you Inspire Geo Portal, how it works, how it can be used in the moment, what services are available, and so on and so on. So this is in general maybe an overview, a short overview of today training. Don't hesitate to ask anytime. If you have any questions, just break me and pose the question. It's not a problem. Okay. Good morning. Okay, before we continue, maybe I will just say a few words about me. I am Vlado Cetl, as you probably already saw in the papers, in the schedule. I am the associate professor at the University of Zagreb, at the Faculty of Geodesy. My background is geoinformatics, mainly geodesy, surveying. And actually with this course I started in GRC. I worked as a grant holder, as a postdoctoral research in the GRC for several years, where I was engaged mainly in the data specification group. So I was working on the data specification mostly for the Annex 2 and Annex 3. Also I was engaged in providing the trainings and some other activities mainly connected with enlargement countries, so in the support of Inspire implementation in Western Balkan countries, Turkey, and so on and so on. Actually my contract finished in February this year, and since February I'm back in Croatia, in Zagreb, at the university, where I'm teaching several actually subjects mainly connected with GIS, geoinformatics, geoinformation infrastructure, and so on and so on. So that was very shortly about me, and we can actually continue. With our training. Okay. Click here. We will go later actually a little bit into the details on the Inspire website, but probably you are all familiar with the Inspire website, but I will try to show you what is the content, how you can find the information, and so on and so on, but this is for the afternoon. What I wanted to show you right now, I hope it will work. It will be one short movie about, let's say, Inspire. Let's see. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have a sound. Okay.
Ensures coordination and activity towards exchange of data and services. Inspire stands for Infrastructure for Spatial.
I think we will try to repeat it later because I need to connect probably somehow to this audio system. Okay. Let me check this after the break. Actually, this movie, you can find it on the YouTube, and I can share all the links with you and all the materials from this training. This movie was one of the deliverables of the Inspiration project. I don't know if you heard about this project. Maybe some of you, yes. Inspiration project, the aim of the project was to support implementation of Inspire in Western Balkan countries. So it was project financed by the European Union, by DG Enlargement, and it lasted, it ended actually in December last year. So the project duration was for 2 years, and actually GRC, where I worked in that time, we were in the steering committee of the project. So we were following the project and deliverables and so on, and these were the final deliverables, and it is really a nice, very nice movie explaining what is really Inspire and why we need Inspire. But as I said, I will try after break to see with technical support how to connect to this system, so then maybe we can put this movie on. Okay. Where am I now? Okay, so let's start with the first presentation today and first session actually, in which I will talk about the general overview of the Inspire directive and also relations to other policies. As you see, actually the author of this presentation is my good colleague Hugo de Groef. You probably all know him. So when we started actually with this Inspire trainings, the first training was made in GRC. It was in December last year, and actually the Hugo was giving the first session. Probably he is much more better in this policy than me, but I will try to do my best just to present you what is the actually background of Inspire Directive, why we need it, why we need spatial data, data sharing, interoperability, and so on and so on. So through this presentation we will try actually to answer several questions, and we have it here, and it is does really inspire, serve society, stimulate innovation, and support legislation. Okay, let's see. The first of all, when we are speaking about the background of Inspire, you all know, I hope so, that Inspire came actually with the idea to support environmental policy. And of course, DG Environment was the creator of the Inspire Directive. How and what was the actually objective? In the 6th Environmental Action Program, which was from 2002 to 2012, we had several priorities and 7 thematic strategies. And if we look at it, for example, in the priorities like climate change, nature and biodiversity, environment and health, natural resources and waste, and on the other side, in the thematic strategies like clean air for Europe and so on through the urban environment, it is, good morning, welcome. It is obvious, like very obvious, that for all of these actually areas we need a lot of spatial data if we want to handle with it. Also, mitigation of natural and man-made hazards that are leading to disaster. For this we are also needing we also need a lot of spatial data. What is the situation current in environment in Europe? So if we go through some of these priorities like climate change, then we can say that some topics here are very well already managed, but for some of them we are still facing a lot of problems. For example, like global mean temperature change, or if we go to nature and biodiversity, it's pressure on ecosystems, biodiversity, soil degradation, natural resources and waste. Again, waste management is, let's say, okay, but waste generation, obviously problem. Environment and health, urban air quality, something which is still not managed well, and so on and so on. I will not read all of these topics, but it is obvious that there are still a lot of problems, a lot of challenges in front of us which needs to be solved. And actually for all of them we need a lot of spatial data. So that's why actually in 2007 Inspire Directive came into the force. Of course we have to know that actually Inspire started to develop already in 2000 and even earlier. I think the very strong push came actually from United States. In 1994 there was one executive order from former President Bill Clinton, and it was an order to establish a national spatial data infrastructure among federal organizations in United States. And I think it's my personal opinion that this actually executive order pushed development of spatial data infrastructures not only in United States but also in Europe, in Australia, New Zealand, and so on and so on. And actually already in 1995 there was one document, GI Strategy for Europe, and I think that was the first, let's say, background or first document really with some ideas of establishing of spatial data infrastructure for Europe. However, it is not so easy to develop something like that in Europe. We are different countries with different cultures, different languages. So for sure to develop something like Inspire, we need a lot of efforts, we need a lot of energy, a lot of resources, and so on and so on. That's why it took a lot of years actually from 1995 to 2007 actually to finally to get Inspire Directive. What is Inspire Directive? We will not read it, but this is a word cloud which we can produce from the Inspire Directive, and we can see first of all that it deals with spatial data, it deals with public data, so we are talking about public authorities around Europe, around the member states. There are several, of course, articles there. We are talking about not only about spatial data, but also about spatial data services. There are some rules we will see, because the Inspire is only the frame directive, so there are a lot of implementing rules below the Inspire directive. What more we have here? Yeah, it's environment. So the main purpose was to really to support environment. However, we can see clearly today that that Inspire goes in different other domains, and you can see from these workshops, you will see on these conferences, that Inspire is really evolving. So it's not only support to environment, but also to other thematic areas. Okay. Spatial data infrastructure, we can somehow compare it with really infrastructure, and probably you heard about it before. We can really say that it is not, of course, road infrastructure or railway infrastructure, but however, we need to develop some kind of infrastructure that we will be able actually to share the spatial data, to find them, to use them. And for this, we need to build an infrastructure. Of course, this Inspire infrastructure, I would say, is more virtual, because everything is on the net. We need to be connected through internet, that we will be able really to reach some databases, to reach catalogs of metadata, and so on and so on. Of course, to be able to develop such an infrastructure, we need to use a lot of different rules, a lot of specifications, a lot of standards, because the main word in Inspire is interoperability. So if we want to share spatial data from different sources, because we are talking about distributed infrastructure, which means that we have a lot of different catalogs, a lot of different databases, and if we want to really use them and combine them without any obstacles, then this data needs to be interoperable. And to be able to do so, of course, we need to use a lot of standards. There are different standards coming from different organizations, and in Inspire, actually, we used all of them, especially from ISO, but also from OGC. And you know actually that how OGC works, and usually the OGC standards actually are becoming ISO standards in some time after they mature enough. So without standardization, I think this is really important part of Inspire, of every spatial data infrastructure, if we want to achieve really interoperability. Yeah, so we want actually to avoid such a situations and to have some clear rules. Usually in spatial data infrastructure, we have some components, and if we look, for example, in NSDI in United States or in Australia or anywhere else, Canada, for example, we will usually find something like this. So we have some kind of institutional framework. We have, of course, spatial data and services and technical standards. So these four components are usually main components of each spatial data infrastructure. Okay, what about spatial data and how they came? You know, and we will go in the afternoon a little bit more into the details, but we have in Inspire 34 data teams. Actually, there are 32, because the first two teams, we cannot call them teams. It's about coordinate reference systems and grid systems. For these 32 teams, in the definition of these 32 teams, it was really important to see how they can actually support these environmental policies. So the idea was, when Inspire was developing back in 2002, 2003, 2004, to see, first of all, different use cases where this data can be used, but also to see, good morning, also to see existing actually directives, because in that time there were also a lot of existing directives, and how to support reporting to those directives. So you will find actually in Inspire library, I will show you later this afternoon, there were several, let's say, basic documents produced in that time by working groups who were working for thematic areas and for the reference data. And in this paper you can find explanation why they used these themes, not some other themes, and for what purpose they defined these 34 data themes. Okay, so back in 2002, European Union has islands of information. Data were of different standards and different quality. And through Inspire, we actually want to somehow to solve this problem. However, if we look at these topics, starting from data policy restriction, lack of coordination, lack of standards, existing data which are not reusable, missing data, and data quality, Inspire is actually focused only on these four topics, which means in Inspire, in the moment, and if you read Inspire directive, we will not go through, you will find that Inspire doesn't require from member states to collect new data. However, if they are collecting new data, they're supposed to actually to harmonize those data with Inspire data specification. But nowhere, in the Inspire directive you will find that member states must collect some new data for some specific data theme. So we are not dealing with this missing data, and also actually data quality is not solved, I would say, properly through the Inspire directive. This is a topic which is very, very important, and in the program you can see a lot of also articles in this conference dealing with the data quality, because today it is obvious that we need also to think about data quality, and for a lot of use cases the data quality is really important. So somehow we need to find a way how we will deal in the future with these data quality issues. However, there are some guideline documents which you can find also on the Inspire website. I can show you later. We actually produced last year one report. It is a technical report which was published by GRC about the data quality, in which, if you are interested in this topic, we tried really to see how to deal with data quality in spatial data infrastructure. But maybe why it was not concerned earlier, because the idea of Inspire in the beginning was, let's share the data. So who cares about data quality in that moment? Let's put data, let's make them available as much as possible. But nowadays, now when we have data available, and you can find already a lot of data sets, and each day actually new data sets are becoming available through Inspire GeoPortal, to national geoportals, to other geoportals. Now we really have to start to think also about the data quality. But okay, let's go back. So through Inspire, actually, we would like to, let's say, to cope with these topics like data policy restrictions, which means pricing, copyright, access rights, licensing policy. We will try to solve this coordination across borders and between different levels of government. To use, of course, standards to avoid such incompatible information systems, and also to try to make data reusable. So not to have fragmentation of information, redundancy, inability to integrate, and so on and so on. But of course, Inspire directive is connected with other directives, and you heard about PSI directive probably. If not, I also think there are some papers presentation in this conference. It is a directive on public sector, on reuse of public sector information. There is also directive on reuse of environmental information, something like that. So these three directives actually are really very closely connected. So you cannot look at the Inspire separately, but you also need to take a look at the PSI directive to be able to understand, and also this directive on environmental data. Okay, let's go further. Okay, so actually start of geoinformation, and we can go through a lot of use cases. I already mentioned this sixth environmental framework and so on and so on. But just one use case, for example, which we have here, like assessment of health impacts. For which we need a lot of different data, starting with geographical data, environmental data, of course health data, exposure data, socioeconomic data, and for example, through following air pollution, we can maybe analyze some cancer cases and so on and so on. There is a actually nice story how this, I think it was some 100 or 200 years ago, one doctor was actually mapping the sources of cholera, and actually through this mapping he actually found that one water reservoir was actually polluted, and that was the source. And actually that was the I would say beginning of let's say some geoinformatics and GIS a long time ago. So this is obvious and use case in which we see how many actually spatial data we need if we want actually to to manage such a things. And then of course we have in this case directive on ambient air quality, which deals with this atmospheric modeling and measurements of air pollution, demonstrate beyond doubt that the pollution emitted in one member state contributes to measured pollution in other member states. Of course, it is clear that to manage such problems, or we mentioned before also disasters, we need to share data across borders, and that's what Inspire actually aims to do. And of course, this clearly shows that individual member states, they cannot solve the problems alone. So they need to cooperate, they need to share data, and concerted action at the EU scale, of course, is required. And we will see a little bit later that in the past, what was the problem with data sharing between the countries? I think the main problem was that actually data, spatial data, maps and so on were produced by military organizations, and of course they hide it somehow. They wanted to keep them secret. For sure, coordinate reference system. We still have some countries in Europe with different coordinate reference systems. There are no proper documentation about this coordinate reference system, and this is the problem. That's why the first data team of the Inspire is actually about coordinate reference systems, which says, okay, if you really want to share your data, you need to use this European Terrestrial Reference Systems 89, and then you will be able, of course, with proposed projection, Transfers Mercator, to really combine your data, to overlap the data between countries, and to use the data. Okay, there are several other use cases, as I said, back in 2002, and if you will read this document, which is available in Inspire Library, about how they defined actually those data teams, then you can find a lot of nice use cases for existing directives and how Inspire actually data teams can support reporting which are needed through these directives. We mentioned this air quality. So if we look at the Inspire data teams and impact information system, first of all, if you look all data, all information that you need, such as source activities, emissions, dispersion process, atmospheric concentration, exposure and impacts, it is obvious that you need a lot of information to produce your report according to air quality directive. For majority of this, you can find support in Inspire data teams, and that is the actually power of Inspire, to be able to help and to support reporting through different directives in environmental. First of all, in environmental domain. Health, air quality. Actually, there was a nice air implementation pilot project. You can find more information on the website. There are also some applications available, and more about this you can find on the web page of European Environment Agency. Then again, for example, pesticide directive, the same, let's say, example or use case. So for the pesticide directive, we also need specific measures to protect the aquatic environment. There are some buffer zones which are defined as a function of the risk pollution, in which we need again a lot of information like soil, climate, measures to limit aerial drift, hedgerows, etc. Reduction of pesticides use in sensitive areas, and reporting info exchange through different risk indicators. Again, in this pesticide directive, you need a lot of input information like meteorology, geophysical context, soil characteristics, land use and land management, different impacts, and you need a lot of different spatial information. For all of them, you can find the support actually through Inspire data teams. Then there is a directive on the assessment and management of floods. The idea is to do a preliminary flood risk assessment and to prepare flood risk maps by 2013 with 6 yearly updates, and also to prepare flood risk management plans by 2015, which concerns as well all the European member states. We can see really that this risk management, and if we are speaking about the floods, then we are probably aware that there are a lot of problems still in the managing of the rivers and in the managing of actually risk of the floods. And we can see usually every year some floods are happening around Europe. We had really bad floods few months ago. I would say it was really catastrophic, partly in Croatia, but then in other rest of the Western Balkans, in Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, there were people dying. For me, which is something not normal in the 21st century, that we have people killing because of the flood. So which means that this not only floods but also other types of disasters which are happening, we really need to manage them properly to save the people, but also to save houses and so on, animals and so on. So it was really a tragedy to watch this on the TV, how it looked like. Of course, again, if we are speaking about floods, it is obvious we need a lot of spatial data, a lot of spatial information. Again, starting from meteorology, land characteristics, catchment characteristics, hydrology, and different type of impacts. Of course, again, through Inspire, we can support managing of this and reporting on this directive. And there are more challenges which we would like also to support and to help through the Inspire. There is a EU 2020 strategy, which is a growth strategy for the periods starting from 2010 to 2020. And the objective is for the European Union to become smart, sustainable and inclusive economy. I think this sustainable is something which we can really support through development of Inspire. And in the sustainable development we have 3 pillars actually, like economic prosperity, environmental protection and social justice. There are 7 flagship initiatives here. Smart growth, here we have Digital Agenda for Europe, Innovation Union and Youth on the Move. Sustainable growth with Resource Efficient Europe, Industrial Policy for the Globalization Era, and Inclusive Growth Agenda for New Skills and Jobs, European Platform Against Poverty. In some areas, for sure, we can help through the development of the Inspire. And there is increasing demand for different resources, so there are some statistical data here, but if we look at them, for example, it is expected that 69% of world population will be in urban areas by 2050, which means if we want to manage urban areas, we need a lot of data. In the terms of spatial data, for sure, we need 3D data to be able to manage it. Then 55% increase in water demand by 2050, 70% increase in demand for food, 30% rise in global energy demand, and 110% increase in oil demand. So these facts are actually something which we need to be aware of it, and of course to be able really to manage these things, I think we will need more and more data. However, today's technologies and sensors actually can do it, so which we are talking already today about big data, we are talking about linked data. So these things actually is something which is driving technology forward, and for sure that I hope thanks to technology and technology developments, we will be able to manage those things. However, there is still a strong division, I will say it, between rich countries and poor countries, and this is something also which is very, I would say, something which needs to be concerned and something which needs to be managed, because it is nice to live in Europe, but if you go somewhere south in Africa where they still don't have actually established cadastre or something like this, so some reference data sets, and so this is really the problem. So there are a lot of efforts, I would say, through different international organizations which are trying really to help those poor countries at least to develop some basic, or let's say, reference data sets which they don't have. So this is really the big problem. There are also land grabbing and such issues in which without, let's say, established cadastre and property ownerships, it is impossible actually to cope with such problems. Of course, in Europe we don't think about it. We have cadastral and land book or land registry, something which was given to us a long time before. But in the rest of the world, this is really the problem. Okay, then resource efficient Europe. There are 20 key policy proposals. There are different areas like energy, transport, resource efficiency, agriculture, fisheries, cohesion, biodiversity. Just one example is a roadmap for a resource efficient Europe. Again, in all of these areas, you can clearly see in the back that we need a lot of spatial data that we really need Inspire to support these areas. You can find this document and it's some kind of framework for future actions in which key resources are analyzed from a life cycle and value chain perspective. You have, for example, nutrition, housing, and mobility are the sectors responsible for most environmental impacts, and clearly we need actions in these areas. There are a lot of other areas in which we need spatial data, like, for example, precise farming is something today which is, I would say, normal for the farmers to use these technologies because it can help to them really to make better production. There are also other systems like GEOS, Galileo. You heard about this, so we are still somehow sensitive to GPS because we are all using GPS in the moment. But that's why we are trying to develop this new satellite system for the Europe, which is called Galileo. I hope you probably heard for this new system, and which will not be, let's say, only some kind of how to say, we really don't want to avoid GPS. We will still use GPS, but with the Galileo, I would say we will be somehow independent from this American satellite systems. So let's see. Of course, if you have more satellites, your precision is better. So today already you can gain, let's say, 1 meter precision with your mobile phone. There are a lot of nice applications for Android we were testing on the university with students this it's called mobile topographer, very nice applications which you can download it for free, and you can go in the field, measure points and so on and so on, and you can gain really I would say up to 1 meter, around 1 meter precision with normal usual mobile phones. So this is really, I would say, the revolution of technology, because I remember when I was studying back in 90s, and I think the first GPS receiver came to my university in 1994 or something like that, and it costed I don't know, $500,000 or something. And the professor said, you can just look at it, not touch, please. Don't touch it. And today we have it in our mobile phone, so this is really the revolution of and I think it is really what we can just imagine what will be in several years. So these technologies, and today we are talking already about the indoor positioning system, which is something which we are doing research currently, because unfortunately with the GPS signals, with the GNSS signals, it's better to say, we cannot go indoors in the moment, but we are trying somehow to combine GNSS signals and with some other type of signals to be able to position us indoor. I mean, if you are in the building, in the tunnel, or wherever, to be able to calculate your position for different purposes. You can just imagine what fields could it be, like disaster management and so on, rescue people. But all the other let's say areas. For example, it was a nice example in the commercial centers that they are following actually people where they are moving around the shop, and then they can see what they are buying and so on and so on. So they are really you know, when you give the people data, and then they can explore a lot of possibilities and potential areas where they can use such a data. So it is really something, I would say, very good. Okay, so of course Inspire can help in all those areas. However, we will see that according to this agenda, let's say, or deadlines for Inspire, I will say we are already too late, because there are new areas, they are actually asking for the data, and we cannot provide Inspire data in the moment. For all of you who know, of course, for example, for the Annex 1 data, harmonized data with the Inspire, the deadline is 2017. So there are still 2 or 3 years in the front of us. We can say in the moment, of course, there are a lot of data already available. However, they are not harmonized with the Inspire. And this is the problem, because there are new areas coming, there are new directives, and they are all asking, okay, we need the data, where is this Inspire? So this is, I would say, the problem in the moment. So we need to foster it and to push it somehow to achieve all those benefits what we can for sure achieve through the Inspire implementation. Then there are other areas, like example, action on sustainable consumption and production, and building of the single market for green products. For this we need actually to provide some measures to measure environmental performance throughout the life cycle, and we need to follow product environmental footprint and organization environmental footprint, and this is also important. And another example is sustainable cadastre. Today we are also speaking about the greening, which is something new if we are speaking about common agricultural policy, which means that farmers will need also to introduce some areas to keep them as they are, so not to use it only for agricultural production. But I would say cadastre is something which is also very important, and usually traditional cadastral, they are using only 2D data, so in 2 dimensions, but today there are a lot of requests for the 3D data, and some countries already started to develop these 3D cadastres, like Netherlands and so on. And it seems that this is really the future trends in the cadastral system. So it will be a new paradigm of traditional cadastral system, where we use only 2D data, and today, of course, thanks to the technology, we can manage it through 3D. Of course, again, it can raise new actually areas. It can raise new ideas to people how to use such a data, not only, of course, for the cadastral purpose, for the ownerships, but also for the other areas. So there are a lot of new possible areas in which we need, of course, spatial data. We need this development of the Inspire. And then if we go more globally, so there are really a lot of areas in which Inspire actually is involved, and we are speaking about this Inspire evolution. There are several workshops today, also I think some of them. Yesterday were nice workshops from the EULF project, European Union Location Framework, where they are exploring these new areas in which Inspire can help, can be implemented. Starting from, I don't know, agriculture, urban planning, e-government, environment, energy, emergency management and response, and of course disaster monitoring, surveillance. So all of this area actually are covered and can be covered by the Inspire. So it is obvious that geospatial technology needs Inspire, and we need it to ensure data interoperability in two basic dimensions. One is the interoperability between among vertical teams, and the other one is interoperability in the horizontal sense among the EU member states. And if we speak about Inspire in general and geospatial technology industry, there are some statistical data telling us that actually this geospatial technology industry is in the top 10 fastest growth employment sectors. And for example, in the United States, it generates a revenue yearly of $30 billion. But there are some, of course, challenges, and the biggest challenge before the industry is the availability and quality of the geospatial data. And through Inspire, actually, we are trying really to cope with this availability. We are trying also nowadays to cope with the quality, but this availability, I would say, it's somehow solved, because we need to understand, and unfortunately there are still some countries, there are still some people around Europe who don't understand that Inspire is the legal document, so it's obligatory. So this is the strength, I would say, from the one side of the Inspire, that we can use it whenever we want. There is a nice articles, there are nice articles which you can find in Inspire Directive, and which, on the basis of them, you can ask for the data, and the public authorities must give you those data, of course, if they have it. So this is what is good, I would say. And we can see, as I said on the beginning, actually, of this first session, that each day we can see more and more actually spatial data available around Europe. I would say this is really the benefit of the Inspire, which we can already achieve. However, we will still need some time actually to really have Inspire harmonized data, harmonized with Inspire data specification. But it will come. It will come. So I'm, let's say, that's my opinion. I'm aware. I would say I'm sure that this will happen. However, we will need to cope with a lot of challenges, and we will need to give a lot of efforts in front of us really to achieve this goal. But somehow I'm sure that it will happen. Another, let's say, maybe problem is this shortage of skilled human resources, which means that in the terms of capacity building, this is also the problem in the Inspire implementation. And when I was worked in GRC, I was traveling a lot of around Europe and around Western Balkan countries, and I really noticed that the capacity building is one of the biggest problem, maybe, because there are a lot of public authorities. They are aware about Inspire. They would like to share the data, but however they are lacking capacity. They don't have people. They don't have knowledge how really to provide data, what they should do, and so on and so on. And this is something really what is a challenge for us, especially for me, let's say, because I am coming from the university, but also for the others who are working in this domain and who are thinking about. So there are also nice trainings coming from some projects, like for example SMESPIRE. Probably you heard about this project or not. Some of you, yes. Some of you are involved somehow. So this project actually is dealing with small and medium enterprises. So you can find, there is a smespire.eu is a website of the project. It's a project that would like to help actually this small and medium enterprise actually to work with Inspire, to use Inspire, and maybe to explore it and to add value in some areas. And they are also organizing some trainings for people who are doing in these companies, in these small and medium enterprises, so they can go and take those trainings to really understand Inspire and what is behind Inspire, how they can implement Inspire, and how they can use Inspire. Also, there is a strong push to more involve Inspire and geoinformatics in the universities. There is also a project starting last year, I think, GI to Know. There is a big consortium, I think, of 30 partners who are exploring how to introduce new subjects at the university levels that will teach about spatial data infrastructure and Inspire. And of course, this is the way how we can actually cope with these problems. But then there is a nice words from Ed Parsons from the Google. You probably heard about him, who said that restrictive practices of some organizations and governments in terms of making their geospatial information publicly available has been a great concern. And yeah, this is true. So there are still organizations, there are still actually public authorities who don't want to share their data, and this is really maybe the greatest problem. We need to cope with this. So this is actually, it's somehow to change the people's mind and to really to show them what are the benefits actually of opening data, of data availability, of sharing the data. So this is something which we need to foster, which we need to push more in the future. However, there are nice examples starting here from Denmark. You heard maybe yesterday was Ulla also. I was listening her presentation. But Denmark actually opened a lot of reference data sets, and they are completely free, either for commercial, non-commercial purposes, whatever. So this is very nice example. However, on the one side we have Denmark, on the other side you have a lot of other countries in which they are still not so they don't like still to open all those data. There are a lot of debates on the national level. I can see, I am coming from Croatia, there are a lot of discussions on the national level. Yeah, what data should be for free, what data we need to charge, and so on. So there is no clear, I would say, vision, no clear policy about how actually to cope with it. Because on the one side you usually have people who are saying, yeah, everything should be open, but on the other side you have people who are saying, ah, no, this is not a good policy. If we open all the data, who will care about data quality? Usually when you have something for free, you're not sure, is this data really good data, I mean in the terms of the data quality or not. So there are a lot of issues, and this is something what we need to think about it and try to find good solutions. However, my opinion, again, this is my opinion, personal, is that data must be open as much as possible, because when you open your data, then the people who will use it, the users, will use those data, and they will find, if you have errors in your data, they will tell you, okay, your data are maybe wrong, you need to fix something, and so on and so on. But if you keep it somewhere secret, you know, under the desk, then, I mean, who knows what is really the value of your data? So this is really something, from what is my opinion, how we should deal with this data. Okay. Then there is a nice document toward National Geospatial Strategy. There are some recommendations from the National Geospatial Advisory Committee about stimulation of economic growth through geospatial technology, using geospatial information to control costs and to save taxpayer money, in which we need to deal with more efficient response to disasters, to enable more effective decision making, better services to the public, and again apply geospatial tools to ensure public safety and decision support. So what is needed actually? Let's say multi-agency approach for shared creation and collection of data, cost and resource saving, greatly increases the value of returns, and development and implementation of a shared geospatial technology infrastructure for use by all partners offers, of course, great promise as a model for cost-effective and efficient government. Also, one thing which is, I would say, not still in the moment introduced, maybe it's the wrong word, better to say, which is still not explored or used enough, is the public-private partnerships when we are speaking about the INSPIRE. This could be because as we said, the INSPIRE directive actually concerns public authorities, and we are speaking about data coming from the public authorities. So the private companies are not concerned. However, we have different approaches, different solutions from country to country, because INSPIRE directive is transposed to national legislations. So usually in all the member states you have some national laws on, let's say, NSDI, National Spatial Data Infrastructures, and then there are a lot of different approach. For example, again from Croatia, in Croatia, in our law on National Spatial Data Infrastructure, we are saying that third, let's say, party can be involved in development of NSDI. There are some rules and so on and so on, and this third party is actually a private company, could be. So we need actually somehow to involve them, because I think this will also push a little bit the implementation of the INSPIRE around Europe. There are some nice examples already. Yes, please. No, it is not. It is not. But it is up to member states. So each member state can decide how, if they want to involve private sector or not. Because in INSPIRE directive you will not find anything about it. In INSPIRE directive it says it is only about public authorities. So it's, I would say, it's up to country level. Because when you are transposing your INSPIRE directive, usually all the countries, they made some kind of law on NSDI, which is in accordance to INSPIRE directive. But in this law, you can define some other things which are not actually originally in the INSPIRE directive. So it is about, it's up to the country, from country to country. As I said, there are different approaches. How will you, let's say, involve private sector or not, or private sector will be only the user of NSDI. It's up to country to decide, to see what is better for them. For example, yeah, this is example of ArcGIS for INSPIRE. So it's a software solution. There are also a lot of other softwares I can show you in the afternoon dealing already with the INSPIRE. This is already some kind of, I would say, maybe not really public-private partnership, but it's obvious that actually private companies, at least software companies, already recognize INSPIRE, and they are introducing INSPIRE in their software solutions. But also the private companies, I think the major benefit from for the private companies is actually to use the data, to use inspired data, which are already available, not harmonized as we said, but to use the data available and to try to add some value and to use them in different applications. And there are a lot of nice examples already how private companies benefits from the Inspire by using data that are available, by creating new applications, new areas, and so on and so on. There are a lot of, I think, nice presentation. It will be in this conference starting from tomorrow, which are telling us about experiences from private companies and how they can already use, how they are already using Inspire for their business actually, and to add some values. Okay. Again, public-private partnerships can help in private companies to deal with different problems, different phenomena, starting, for example, with the utility companies, liability, and so on, to manage all the cycles, let's say, in the water management, and so on. There are a lot of nice examples which can be used. Then we are coming to this 7th environmental action program, which says the motto is living well within the limits of our planet, and this will guide actually environmental policy up to 2020. Again, we have some thematic priority objectives like protect nature and strengthen ecological resilience, boost sustainable resource efficient, low carbon growth, effectively address environment related threats to health, supported by enabling framework, so promotion of better implementation of EU environmental law, ensure that policies benefit from state-of-the-art science, secure the necessary investments, improve the way environmental concerns and requirements are reflected in other policies, and 2 more priority objectives, this enhancement of the sustainability of the EU cities and improvement the EU's effectiveness in addressing regional global challenges related to the environment and climate change. Again, you can see that actually Inspire is here, and we need Inspire really to support all these objectives that we would like to cope with them. Better implementation of EU environmental law as an example. We have here preventing damage to the environment can cost far less than long-term remediation, but failing to implement environment legislation is thought to cost the EU economy around 50 billion of euros every year in health costs and direct costs to the environment. Full implementation of EU waste legislation would generate an additional 400,000 jobs, for example, with net costs that are 72 billion less than the alternative scenario of non-implementation. Governance. Member states are responsible for ensuring that the EU's environmental laws are implemented in their countries, and the role of the Commission here is to check that member states' commitments are respected and take action if they are not. Better and more accessible information, of course, at different levels, starting from national to local, would allow major environmental problems to be identified earlier, to save the costs also in the longer term. And better implementation, of course, can be powered by geospatial technologies and powered by the Inspire. Okay, so let's see what is the actually status of the Inspire building site, or where we are now in the moment. Are we here or here? But for sure we are not here, I would say, in the moment. So I would say in the moment we are somewhere here, but trying to go to deadline. So we still need a lot of workers here who will actually build up site like this. Okay, we will go through different areas, and I will try really to explain what is good, what is not good, and so on and so on. If we are speaking about the policy coordination, First of all, there was a strict deadline starting in 2007 with the introduction of Inspire Directive. That's all member states, all countries, they have 2 years to transpose this directive in their national legislation. However, there were some delays, so I think the last country was Austria, if I remember well. That was in 2010 or 2011. I think the problem was with some countries because of the federal organizations. For example, you have Germany with 16 Bundesländer, and each Bundesländer actually they have separate law. So it was they needed to introduce 16 different laws and one on the federal level. So it was really time consuming for some countries to actually to transpose Inspire Directive into their national legislation. But in the moment, all EU 28 member states have their national or regional Inspire law. Even I can say for Croatia, we entered in 1st July last year, but in the May last year we introduced a new law on NSDI, which actually transposed Inspire Directive into our national legislation. Then there are also some other countries, not member states, who also have following actually Inspire, and they introduce new laws according to Inspire. And I can tell you there are a lot of other countries, especially potential candidate countries in Western Balkan countries, but for example Moldova, Turkey, they're also actually working on new laws, or they already implemented some new laws in accordance with the Inspire. Also Ukraine is following Inspire. So they're also trying to be in cope, to follow the Inspire, to see what are the benefits of Inspire, and to be in line with the Inspire. However, situation nowadays is not nice there, and unfortunately we had a plan in GRC to organize a big workshop for the colleagues from Ukraine in January this year, but unfortunately, because of the situation, it was impossible for these people to come to GRC and to be on that workshop, and that was really pity, because we organized for 20 people a big workshop there, and they didn't show up because of the political situation. But let's see, they will solve it, that is for sure. As I said, almost all candidate countries from Western Balkans. Then we have this EU digital agenda, we have this revision of PSI directive from last year, but also the Inspire directive goes through a revision this year. Probably there will be more about this on the plenary session, I can expect, or even through some other presentation this week. You know that there were some public consultations beginning of this year about Inspire. Maybe you heard, someone of you? No? So public consultations were open, I think February and March this year, something like that. And all of actually, I think they didn't get a lot of feedback, because I spoke with Hugo, and he told me that he is not satisfied with this. Yeah, they expected a lot of more contributions from people, from experts, from countries, but unfortunately the feedback was low, so I don't know. We will see, but probably they will introduce some changes, I can expect some changes regarding probably maybe data quality and some other issues which need to be tackled. And the revision is expected in autumn this year, I think October or something like that. So the Inspire directive is also going through revision, and this PSI directive was also reviewed last year. So we have new, let's say, new PSI directive. It's not new, but with some changes. Then we already mentioned that Inspire is going in other EU policies, not only environmental policies, but also transport, space, health, and so on and so on. We can already see a lot of nice use cases where Inspire is used in different domains other than really environmental. Environmental directives and initiatives demand Inspire. This is good. And Inspire is also recognized globally as a best practice. An example is in good governance from World Bank, United Nations, but when I was still in GRC, we also had a visit from Australia, people who are developing spatial data infrastructure in Australia. They are also interested, they are following Inspire, they want to use benefits from the Inspire, and this is really good. So it is really recognized globally, and I will say that these specifications, we will speak about this later, that are developed by the Inspire, by the people from the GRC, from DG Environment and so on, are really used and recognized as some kind of de facto standards around the world. And we still have a dedicated EU coordination team, starting from GRC, European Environment Agency, DG Environment and Eurostat, as a support to development of Inspire. Of course, there are some things which are not so good. As I mentioned already, there were some delays and incomplete national regional Inspire laws. This is something what is really important to say, that because it is slow doesn't mean that it happens, and it is not only with the law on NSDI. I think you can see probably also in your countries that we have a lot of nice laws, but if they are not implemented well, I mean, these are just, you know, all the words on the paper, no? But in practice, we cannot really use them. EU Digital Agenda, speaking about open data, but does Open Data Initiative really remove all the obstacles? And do we have really enough support for the environment, beyond low carbon, for example? Then there are some other EU policies, and they are seeing Inspire really as a purely environmental, not as a support also to other domains. So there is a risk of duplication. Environmental directives, I already mentioned this, need Inspire faster than Inspire implementation roadmap demands. And this is the problem which we are facing today, that we already need Inspire data, but we still don't have really Inspire data. We have the data, maybe in some national models, but not really harmonized to the Inspire. And there are some new policy initiatives, so maybe we could be lost in acronyms. Okay, regarding spatial data and services, Inspire technical framework is adopted, and some deadlines are already reached. We can see steep increase in spatial data published and documented, so there are a lot of portals developing, already developed and actually connected through Inspire GeoPortal. We will go to Inspire GeoPortal this afternoon, in the last session actually. Of course, if you will be here in this room. And then we can see actually that day by day there are some new services raising up from different countries and are connecting to Inspire GeoPortal. And there are also a lot of nice examples for national geoportals, which are really good and which can be used by different users for different areas and so on and so on. We can see progress on removing data policy obstacles for several Inspire teams in several countries. Several good practice and pilot projects using Inspire spatial data for environment from local to European scale, but also evidence of cross-border inspired spatial data and service sharing for different applications. And I saw also in the program a lot of several articles actually about some cross-border projects which they are trying already to use Inspire data and to share, combine them between countries. This was good, but what is not good, if we are speaking about spatial data and services? First of all, Inspire in the technical sense is not simple. And this is unfortunately true. That's why we had this concern about capacity building and human skills and so on. We will go a little bit after lunch actually into the data specification, because I was working on data specification, so I know a lot. But for let's say, people who are not really deep technicians, it is some kind very difficult to read data specification. That's why I will try to make it, let's say, simpler to you, just to let you know how you can use it, how can you read it, because people are usually stuck at the beginning because they don't know how to read data specifications. So I wouldn't say that we really need Einstein brain, but it is good to have some technical knowledge, you know, that you are able to follow what is written there. However, sometimes don't be afraid, because some documents, they have several hundred pages, and this is times difficult, but don't be afraid. So you need just to be brave, and it's not a problem. The problem is interconnection between these different, we mentioned there are a lot of portals already existing, but the problem is that these portals, these one-stop shops or whatever, are still not interconnected. So you still, if you need some data for your use case, you need to go to shop around, so which means you need to invest your time, sometimes also money. Then how easy is to fill your shopping basket? So be ready to sign many agreements, maybe sometimes to pay. There are still too many shops are still closed actually, or they have poor service. And at the end of the day, can you find and get all that you need? So most likely some ingredients will be missing. And of course the issue of quality, I am really happy with the quality of those data that you actually find and want to use. Okay. And yes, you are still on the pursuit of happiness. But as I said, a lot of nice examples are already existing. I like this one coming from Ireland, for example, Irish Special Data Exchange. There are a lot of other portals, I don't know, I like from Czech Republic, for example, and so on and so on. So there you can find a lot of examples, and we can go in this last session to visit some of them to see what they are really offering. There are also a lot of thematic portals already been developed, where you can find some thematic data sets for different purposes, and this is really what is good. This is really the benefit already what we can see of the Inspire implementation. But building Inspire is, yeah, I hope we can do it. However, we need really to share to achieve this data sharing, but also to share the knowledge and skills, and this is what is really important. So status of implementation, this slide was from December last year, but I think the situation is still similar or the same. Yeah, so in 2007 we started with this iceberg to show up above this sea level. In 2013, I would say also 2014, we are somewhere here. So there are still a lot of work which needs to be achieved till 2020. And we have this policy evaluation, we have this revision of the Inspire directive. Probably, I'm sure there will be some changes in this year. But however, we must be aware of different risks, but also of different opportunities in this Inspire implementation. So, European agenda, if we look, we have geospatial technology, information services, which can help address some of the major priorities of the EU 2020 strategy. Development and implementation in Europe, we need coordinated, collaborative national, regional geospatial policies. We have these three building blocks, starting from Inspire, Copernicus, Galileo, as the European building blocks. Top-down meets bottom-up, which means we have really from Inspire directive and other directives this top-down approach, but somewhere we need also to meet this bottom-up and to foster these public-private partnerships. So, sharing is everything, said by Claire Headley on the Inspire conference 2010, and I think this is really important. We need to share data. We need to share our knowledge, our skills, really to be able to implement Inspire Directive. Questions? We are at the end, I will say, of the first session, and I will try in the break to set up this movie, which I promised on the beginning. We had some audio problems, but I will try to manage it, so maybe we can show the movie at the beginning of the next session. As I said, this session was more to give you some general overview of what is Inspire, why we need Inspire, how it came, and so on and so on. In the second session, I will go a little bit more in the Inspire components. So I will speak about implementing rules, about metadata, data specifications, and so on and so on. For those of you who are thinking, will they stay in this room or maybe move to some other room. Then after lunch we will go into the data specification. So I will show you how to read data specification, how to implement them. Also I can show you some software solutions which are already existing, how for the transformation of models and so on and so on. And the last session actually will be about Inspire in practice. So we will go to Inspire GeoPortal, try to find some metadata, try to find some data, try to use already some data. So it will be more interactive, let's say. Also for you who are using your laptops, who have laptops with you, you can bring them to this last session, and we can do it simultaneously with you. Okay, are there any questions? Yes, please. I think presentations will be available because I got this morning from Karen actually one USB stick, and she was asking me to copy all the presentations. So I presume that all the presentation will be available on the Inspire website. If not, actually this presentation, which is from Hugo, but also my presentations are already available on the Inspire forum. I will show you Inspire forum later, but maybe some of you are aware of Inspire forum. Are you use it or not? Not? No? Okay, so Inspire forum is a very good source of information. So I can strongly advise you, if you want to be, because there are different groups on the Inspire forum dealing with different topics. So one group is for the training, Inspire training, and already in this group, if you join this group on the Inspire forum, you can find a lot of presentations, lot of materials about Inspire and Inspire trainings. So please join this group. You will find already this presentation there. But I presume that all the presentations will be available on the conference website. I mean, they are collecting them, so probably they will put all the presentations there. Some other questions? There was too many information, it seems. Okay, so don't be afraid to come to the next session. I think we can then go for the coffee break, and as I promised, I will try to set up this movie for the beginning of the next session. Enjoy the coffee and see you later. Thank you.